All right, let's start the day off right. Shade Tree jet skiing again. This is 800 that I did the detailed build on the engine, and I've noticed that it has a lot of cavitation on takeoff. So what do I mean when I say that? Well, when you've got cavitation, what you've got is you've got too much clearance between your prop. This is a new one, and this is a wear ring. And these are factory Yamaha. There's lots of aftermarket companies that make these parts as well, and they even make a plastic wear ring for Yamahas like the Sea-Doos have now, where you can just pull this out and replace the wear ring. I've put that on a ski that I sold once. It was a little cheaper than buying this metal one. Okay, so there's that option for you. But yeah, so you get cavitation. Let's see if I can get this in here. With the tolerance, you can hear it kind of scrapes as it goes in. There's like almost no clearance, and this thing is obviously centered perfectly when it's running. So when you get cavitation, you've got too much space between the prop and the edge of this wear ring. So then air bubbles kind of however much water rushes past it, and what it does is it causes your ski to, when you're coming up out of the hole in the water, it just stays at the angle like this for a long time before it planes off. So that's when you get cavitation going on there. The other problem with some of these Yamahas, you can get cavitation caused by the prop pushing water into the cavity of the foot, and I'll show you that when I pull this off. So we're going to do a video on replacing the prop, but you're also going to need to get the prop. You see, you've got a wrenched, I don't know what size that is. It's going to be about the same size as that, but you need this tool, if I remember correctly, to hold the splines to pop this thing off. And I can't remember whether it's reverse threaded or not, but here's the part number on this spline tool. If I can get it to focus, WR007H. So just remember James Bond, WR007H. That's your spline tool to hold the little shaft. Once you've got this out, you do have to use, I believe, sealant when you're putting this back together and putting it into the ski. If I remember correctly, the Sea-Doos use a round seal. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. A few years, in fact. So, but this one needs it. Don't know if that one's going to need it yet, but that will be found out later. Real quick, before we get into the replacement, you can see this is new parts. That's still on there. This is off the last one that I did. And you can see, well, is there really that much of a difference? Look at this space here. See that? Just that much space. Now look, you got a little bit of slop and wobble, and your edges are kind of worn from sand and dirt and little rocks and stuff coming through there. They nick up the prop, but just, I mean, see, I'm pulling it to one side and you see the gap. There's too much gap, and it causes all kinds of problems for your getting up out of the hole and for your top speed on your ski. Just that much clearance is too much. Now look at this. So this is the brand new stuff. You can't, you can't get it to wobble. This is wore out. It's wore out, sloppy, and I expect when we pull this one off of this ski, we're gonna find the same thing. So yeah, this is from the last one I did. Like I said, it's probably been 4 years or better since I did one. So hopefully I'll remember how to do it. It's not that hard. Let's get on with it. First things we want to do is go ahead and put our reverse gate down so it's easier to disconnect the linkage from it. And of course, you do that by pulling your reverse link. All right, so you've got a linkage here. You slide that back. And I'll see if I can do this with one hand. Yeah, just like that, it pops off. Same thing here. This is for your trim, your quick shift trim system. Slide it back, pop it off. And those will just hang there, kind of in the way. Now we've got this one hose we've got to disconnect. Let's see if I can get a light on it better. Yeah. The one hose, I think that's just a little 1/4 inch drive. It may be smaller. I think that's smaller. 1/4-inch drive, and then get this hose off. And that all that hose is, and if you don't like your Yamaha shooting water, all that is for this here to spray the little rooster tail up in the air, and you can block that off if you don't like it with a plug. Okay, so it is a 1/4-inch nut driver. I'm going the wrong way. Back it up, not tighten it up, and take this off. And you're probably going to have to get a flat blade or something under at least the edge to get it to back off. So now we've got our clamp loose. I've slid it up. Let's get under here. Usually you can pry this up with a flat blade. You may have to break it loose with a pair of pliers first. Just do a little twist with it. So this is not like a critical hose, but it's got to come off to get this pump off. That might have loosened it enough. Thing's been on there for a few years, huh? Yep, it didn't want to come off too easy. This is not a saltwater ski. There you go, it's coming. Pry that off and get it out of your way. Try not to lose your little clamp. You might want to tighten it so as not to lose it. All right, so then we got one more linkage, and I'll show it to you right here. This ball joint right here, that does your steering, right and left. And so you see it's got an Allen socket in the top for this 10mm nut. So it's on there. Am I showing it right? Trying to get up on here and look without there, right there, and loosen it. So that's the next step. But I want to get my reverse gate back. Well, you don't have to. If you use a socket, it's fine. I'm using a wrench, a gear wrench, so I need my reverse gate back up. And since it's not connected anymore, you have to do a little release thing right here. Release this and click it up. Get it out of your way. You can take that off. Let me see if I can get this on the right way. It's a 10mm nut. I'm using a gear wrench. I'm going to go ahead, and this is a 5mm Allen. Just take this nut off. It doesn't even seem like it's that tight. There's a washer underneath that to kind of keep it from dropping off while you're in the water. I don't know why they didn't use a nylock on that. Okay, so this thing is threaded in there. So at the base, I'll show you when I get it out. I'm using the 5mm Allen to twist this out. I've seen it be just pushed through, or maybe the ones I've seen were stripped out. I don't know. This one's threaded, so it is not going to tap out. It's a good thing. So if you lose a nut, you don't lose your steering instantly. You might get a little bit left. And so if you can't turn it with the Allen, you notice I've put the reverse gate back down, and I'm taking this out because it is threaded into that nozzle. All right, it's out. I'll lift up the reverse gate. And what I'm going to do is going to put the hardware back onto that threaded piece so that I don't lose it. It's just stainless steel stuff, so if you did lose it, you could just go to the hardware store and get some stainless. All right, once again, I'm gonna, if I can get this on here, release this, tip up, so I can show you what I got going on here. This is threaded into there. So at the base of it is a 10mm wrench. You can grab it. There's two sides that are flat. You can turn it with that wrench. If you can't do it with the little Allen wrench, you can get a little bit better, more leverage, and thread that out. Next step, we're going to pull the, we need to pull the ride plate from under the bottom. I think you can do this without pulling the ride plate, which might be easier since I'm on the trailer. So we're going to try to do it without pulling the ride plate, okay? Because if you pull the ride plate, you're going to have to reseal it. The ride plate is this big piece of metal. It's held on with a bunch of 12mm bolts underneath. So we're going to these, I wish I had something to point with. These bolts here, right here, I think they're 14s. here, and then there's 2 more underneath, and then we're going to pull that thing out. We've got everything disconnected, and now we're going to pull it out. And then we got to do some disassembly once we get that apart, because we've got to come apart here on these 4 to get to this piece, which is in there. It's part of the jet pump. So let me get my out. Now I like to do, and I've told you before, oh boy, I like to leave the top ones for last usually. Let's see if these are easier. Yeah, those will come right out. Let's try this up. Thing's been in there a few years. Sorry for the loudness. Yeah, I might have to put a little something with a little more torque on it, like my arm and a bigger wrench. This is not a heavy duty impact. And boy, it ain't hitting on none of them. There's only 4, I think. If I remember correctly, I think there's only 4. So yeah, you can come apart here as well. All right, I gotta get some. All right, in typical older ski fashion, that thing does not want to move. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with the base screws, and then I looked in there, and there is one more bolt. I think it's a 10 millimeter, and I'll show it to you. These are shorter bolts. And I'm gonna go with the bottom first. Then I got one more. I had to loosen these with a big 1/2-inch drive. Socket wrench. And there's another hose that's not attached on this one. Now it's just a water jet nozzle, but there's a secondary hose, and I'll show you that you got to disconnect. If yours is connected, you can see I've got it hanging out the end of the jet ski right here. This is supposed to be connected. Can you see the fitting? Center screen right there. That fitting is supposed to have that hose connected to it. And then, so it's not critical because it's just blowing, like bypassing water through that side of that, and it goes. I can get it in there. If I can get this zoomed in. See the hose right there, and it's cracked. It's cracked down in here. So I'm gonna have to replace that hose. It's not really that big of a deal. Probably just a piece of fuel hose or something will work. It doesn't have to be fuel hose, but something that diameter, it'll fit on there. But we've also got one more bolt holding this thing on. I can get it to zoom on it. There it is right there. And that's a 10 millimeter. So you gotta have a long extension with a 10 to get to that one extra little bolt so you can pull this off. Okay, so don't forget that. That one you'll miss it. Pull your 4 mains and it still won't come off, and you're gonna be cussing, wondering why your pump won't come off, and it's because that one bolt is still holding it on. So there's that one 10 millimeter bolt that you gotta get out also. I'm just setting them all up here. You might want a tool tray or parts tray to put your bolts into. Now, I just tried moving this. That thing is on there. So, I guess they used really good sealant or glue or whatever to put this thing on. I'm gonna have to use some probably unconventional methods to get this apart. I've seen people come along with a rope to it before, or on video, not in person. But this thing's on there, and looks like it's gonna be a little fun to get off. All right, let's try it. All right, I used unconventional means to get this out. Somebody had put all kinds of white RTV. Maybe that's from the factory. I don't know, but I did get it out. These can be a pain. Now you see here why you need the spline tool, and because you need to be able to grab onto this and hold it with a wrench so that you can take this loose. So wrench, or vise and wrench. And then I got to look and see if these are reverse threaded or not. I think they are. But let's take a couple of ganders at what we got going on here. You do have, this only fits one way, so you can't put it on wrong. Looking at the clearance, see that? See the gap you got there? Huge gap on that blade on the leading edge. Not so much on that one, but enough to have caused problems. So, yeah, while you've got this out, it might not be a bad idea. The bearing feels good, but you've got lubricant in here, and you might want to go ahead and replace that. I can't remember if it's grease in these. I know it's synthetic oil in the Kawasaki's, and these are always plastic. So, yeah, you might want to go ahead and take a look at that. Also, I think there's a screen inside of here. You want to clean that. Go ahead and take this off and clean this screen out, and we'll go through all of that in this video. Obviously here your wear ring is going to come right off. Probably just can toss that because it's going to be garbage. I dropped my little spline tool on the ground, and then there's your prop. And you can see leading edge is a little dinged up. Now there are some people and places that can rework props. I know they do it on boats, and weld them and get them pitched right and all that other stuff. I don't know whether they do that with these or if it's even worth it. I guess it depends on how expensive of a prop you're running. So keep that in mind. That's probably why I didn't throw the other one away, but these seem to be readily available and not too hard to find. So let's get this thing off first. All right, I'm just going to tell you right now, pretty much without a table and a vise to do this on, you're not going to do this. I had to take a hammer and bang it against the pipe wrench to get this loose. Comes right off that way, but it has to turn the wrong way. So basically it's turning clockwise to come off, which is backwards. It's backwards threads, and then you get it off. But I mean to tell you, it's on there. You may have to heat it, and if you've had saltwater corrosion, you might want to soak it with something first, heat it, beat it. There you go. It's coming off, and you have to have this tool. You try to put this in a vise with just those splines, you're going to rip them to pieces. You've got to have this tool. This is a must-have to do this job. Don't even try it if you don't have this. Okay, so we've got the old prop off, and we want to note, there's your factory 800 part number, 67. So we'll put this back on. There is a spacer, a plastic spacer that goes under the prop between it and this. Now I'm also going to clean this up a little bit with a wire brush, just one of them little toothbrush wire brushes, and clean this. I just don't like stuff like that. I mean, it's just a little bit of oxidation, but that's it. And tighten it down. All right, so I'm getting all the old gasket material cleaned off. I've got a gasket scraper here. Forgot I had one. And I used a wire wheel brush on the drill for the most part. But then there's right in this gap right at the edge, it doesn't want to come out too easily. So if you don't have this, you can use a small flat blade. But this gasket scraper tool is pretty nice to have for this kind of a job. Gets it off a little bit easier than a screwdriver because it's got a little bit of a blade to it that'll scrape that off. So get this cleaned up. Clean up your bolts, on your threads on your bolt, your threads where your propeller, I haven't put it back on yet, where your propeller thread on, clean those up. And we're going to put a little bit of Loctite on our bolts and what have you when we go back together to get this thing all nice and pretty on both sides. And then you've got the nozzle housing to do also. All right, so that's what I'm doing right now, cleaning all this up. So I've pulled off the little screen part, Like I said, you just want to check this. It's got an O-ring seal. This can get clogged up, and I can't remember what problems it causes when it does get clogged up, but it can get clogged with weeds and stuff like that. And it's just a flow-through thing, it looks like. I'm sure it's there for a reason, but it's good. There's nothing clogging up that screen, so I'm going to just put some Loctite on my bolts and put them right back in. Put them right back in. And I'm guessing you don't need that. See that done. It's very simple, straightforward procedure. And since there's an O-ring, you don't have to use sealant to put this back together. But you want to make sure the O-ring is intact, not tore up, raggedy, whatever. So there you go. And that's that. Then, let's see, am I in frame here? Not really. So then we move on to this cone, 3 10mm bolts. Let's get in a close-up here. So you've got a little place to pry it off right there. This is probably going to be sealed with an O-ring as well. And I'm just checking for my grease in there, everything, no water. Because there's bearings in there. The technique that I use to get this off, I put a flat blade under there. There's 3 different spots. You just tap, pry that up. Remember, this is a plastic nose cone, so you don't want to break it. And it's coming right off. Pop. All right, grease is okay. So there is a specific Yamaha jet pump high pressure lithium grease that has to go in there. That's why it's that color. I don't have that grease. Everything's smooth. I'm just going to seal it back up. So that isn't water that got in and made the grease look like that. That is lithium, like a white lithium type grease, and it is packed full still. So this entire cone, that is full of grease. So I'm gonna, I don't know, maybe plop some back around it. Not that it matters, because that thing's spinning, and it's good to go. So we're going back on with the impeller, making sure your plastic ring is in place. I put a little bit of blue Loctite on there. And of course, this is probably a torque to spec item. I'll look it up, see if I can find that for you. But I'm just gonna probably just tighten it down, because I don't have a sideways torque wrench, or I don't have a crow's foot seal on the torque wrench. And let's put that right there. And I'm gonna get a proper wrench to tighten that down. All right, I'm sure this is metric. And I've got 1 1/8, and I believe 1 1/16 would fit it a little bit better. But tightening this. All right, so we're working on this XL800. So you got your nice shiny new prop. I clean the shaft, I clean the threads on that. I use the tool to hold that in a vise while I wire wheel brush all of the parts. And I'm going to tell you something. They've got these little ears from piece to piece, and if you think that just prying between the 2 ears is going to pop your piece off, yeah, you may get the back part off back here with the plastic bucket that reverses and everything, but up here, this thing's on there. This, whatever sealant they use, that stuff is on there, and heat it with your little torch. Just kind of heat, go around, give you a good even heat. You ain't got to sit there and bake it, but if you heat that up, it'll come right apart. Okay? I don't know how much that's going to help you with it up in the ski. You'll have to pull the ride plate off and heat it. You can only get to about maybe half of it with a torch, but heating it seems to be the ticket for getting these things to come apart much, much easier. Because beating them and all that, you're going to tear something up. You're going to break something. It's all aluminum, except for the prop. That's okay, so going back together with this, you want to put you some marine grade sealant in there and tap it back together with a rubber hammer. So you got the ears where they line up. This has dowel pins in it, and it will not line up properly in the wrong direction. So really you can only put it on one way. If you try to put it on the other way, you'll see that it does not fit right and looks wonky. So clean your surfaces up. You're gonna have to clean up the hull where this mates up against the hull, and clean this, and then I got the bucket piece down over there somewhere. I'll grab it and we'll show you some clearances once I get this bolted back together. Okay, so you're getting it all back together. You've got your sealing in between every little place. And then you've cleaned your bolts. Now that white mess, if you got oxidation on them, clean it off. Put you some Loctite on there and then put them back in. That's what I'm doing next. The 4 long bolts right in. All right, so let's talk about where the jet pump goes back into your hull. There's your intake grate. This right here is the shoe. Now you see this gap that I got here? They make something called a shoe filler stuff. It's I don't know, you fill it up. Because this can cause cavitation, because it's like it doesn't match up perfectly. So if you can, you want to fill in that shoe. It's hollow all inside there. And so you can get cavitation from that shoe. It fits in from the bottom, and yeah, it can cause cavitation. So what I'm going to do is from here, I'm going to fill this with a clear silicone that I've got, and just kind of get as much of it in there as I can and try to get that filled up. It'll help it. The best way to do it is to take the entire shoe out and fill it entirely with that shoe filler, the stuff that they sell to keep it from cavitating. The bottom part of the shoe is right there. So right here. So you can have issues with that not sealed up properly, cause cavitation on you, and cause it to, drag a little. But you want to fill all that up if you can. You get the most thrust out of your ski. So cleaning this is what I'm doing now. I'm kind of in here and just cleaning this intake area and cleaning around to make my jet pump back up. I was going to say that gasket scraper long handle comes in really handy for getting in there and cleaning out that old gasket material. And you can see, I can keep my head out of shadow, you can see I filled up that gap with the silicone. So you gotta let that dry and cure up before you put it in the lake. And yeah, it's pulling water past that anyway, so it's not a huge deal. Some people say that can cause problems, so we'll go with that. I'm gonna go ahead and probably put a little grease on all these and on this, a little marine grease on those before I stick my pump back in. Okay, so let's talk about the tolerance. See that gap between the prop and the wear ring. The service range is 0.012 to 0.014 inches. So worn out of service ain't gonna work no more. It's 0.024. I've got the sealant on my blade here. See if I can get this to stand up, or at least I'll lay it down where we can look at this. So I've got there's an 0.12 to a 0.014. So you take your feeler gauge and you come in here, try to get some light on it, and check it in different spots. You can see I can't even get an 0.12 in there. So we're well within tolerance here. I'll grab one of the wore out ones. So the lowest won't fit, then we're good. We're good on this wear ring. We're good on this impeller. I mean, you can see. So that's new. Let's grab one of these old wear rings. Okay, check it. I have to bring it up and down to get this video not to do the other way. Okay, so this is my largest feeler gauge I've got on this set. I've got another set somewhere, but here's a 14 with this old prop. Look at this. Slips right in most places, anywhere around. So you've got a worn prop or a worn ring or both. You can try getting a new prop and sticking it in there and see what kind of clearance you've got. But with my largest, I don't have a 24 to test it with, but it's wore out. And you'll get nicks on the end of your blade and different stuff like that. And so that's, you know, you're going to end up with cavitation because you're going to have water bypassing the prop as it's spinning. And you're going to lose some of your thrust going through the water. So it takes it a while to plane off when that happens. So there's how you measure that. And you want to do it in several different places. And I'm going to show you one more issue that I had. I had a wear ring off of a ski with 93 hours. I think this is it right here. Yes, this is it. And I don't know how well it shows up on video, but this thing's lumpy. You can run your hand in there and it's got bumps. It's like, you can see all the oxidation that happened from this thing sitting. It sat in the lake for 5 years. This is the ski that I cut up with a Sawzall on video. The parts off of it have saved me a lot. And I figured with 93 hours, this should be a good, usable part. But it is not. Look how well that shows up. But you can kind of see the dimples. I don't know how that happened. I don't think that just sitting in the lake should have caused this kind of problem. I'll show you what happens. So it would sit in the ski. This would be the front. And your prop goes in. If you could fit it. You have to finagle it. See, it won't even spin. The prop won't spin because of those lumps that somehow formed in the in that wear ring. So that thing would have caused all kind of problems. Make it seem like the motor was locked up or whatever. But I had fun getting that off. That was fun. But that's no good. That wear ring is no good unless you could take a oh, what do you got? A hone? If you have a big enough cylinder hone to hone it down a little bit, then maybe. But you know, these aren't that expensive, so just buy another one. But that happened. So let me know if any of that ever happened to you. We got lumps inside in the wear ring. Of course, now Yamaha has a replacement with the plastic wear ring like a Sea-Doo. I'm not a big fan of them because sand can blast those things out pretty quick. So there's our ski. I've lubed these up a little bit with a little bit of marine grease. I've also put a little bit of marine grease on the end of this shaft. Got my sealant on there. Now I got to get it back up in there. So I don't think this is too hard, but we'll see. That lined up. And you may have to turn the shaft a little bit going in. It only fits one way. You may need to spin this with your hand to get it to line up front up there. See, we're hitting now. Now, this is where it would be easier if you had the ride plate off, because you can reach up there behind that space, turn it. As it is now, I don't have that option. So let me tighten up all your bolts. 1, 2, 3. Well, can't see it too good. There's one there. And don't forget that little 10mm and that one hose. Hook those up. It doesn't really have to have anything. I think that's for the siphon, the factory siphon that siphons water. I think that's what that is, but I'm not positive. And then you got to, of course, hook all your little dealies back up. There it is. All back together. Now I just got to clean it up and go to its new home. I went and put, this one vibrates a lot. Well, they all do. But this one, and here's a problem you're going to have with a lot of these things will slide as it's vibrating. They had bolts in them from the factory. Everybody takes them out. But I put them back in. So that cover won't come loose with those 2 bolts in there. And that's it. And if you ever have a time with the cold starting, they can lose their prime because there's just a diaphragm going back and forth with the vacuum of the engine for the carburetor, you have a little spot right here. You can pop that open, shoot you a little bit of ether in there, crank them right up when they have a hard time starting. And that's when, if they lose their prime. This one's really good about keeping it. If it sits for a few weeks, it'll lose that prime, and then they'll then turn it over and over. Just open that whole shot of ether, fire it right up. All right, Shade Tree Jet Ski, I'm gone. Got a jet pump replacement, gone. Done. See ya in the next video.